You've said quite enough.
It's a little bit creepy, yeah.
Yeah, it is a bit creepy, yeah. Should companies be forced to pay staff for working overtime? Unions estimate 3.8 million Brits did unpaid overtime last year. They put in an average of 7.2 unpaid hours every week. On average, all those extra hours worked out as £8,000 a year of wages going unpaid, according to the TUC. And it's teachers and healthcare managers who are most likely to work beyond their contracted hours for free. The TUC made a little film to show what that feels like.
Sorry to bother you, but would you mind taking a quick look at that email?
Okay, so...
I need you to redo the budget spreadsheet. Some new figures have come in. Just wanted to touch base on that project we discussed. Do you have an update? Quick reminder to review the presentation ahead of tomorrow's meeting. Thanks.
That's quite clever, that, isn't it? What do you think of it?
Do you know what? I don't like painting by numbers. I have managed all my life to avoid having to fill in timesheets. A lot of people fill in timesheets, and it just makes a very, very literal definition of what it is that you are doing at every given moment of the day. And I think that we should be able to say, what is Jeremy Vine worth? And you come into the studio and you do what it takes, and you don't say, I'm not going to get out there today and I'm not going to dress in my lycra, I'm not going to get on the rowing machine as you did once with me. It's just something that you go along with. Now, it doesn't work for everyone. There's some people, if you work in a pub, for instance, and you say, will you stay on another 2 hours? You get paid whatever an hour, you get the other 2 hours. But sometimes middle-class people treat their work where there are all kinds of intangible benefits, like people who do those jobs are. And I think you've got to see the bigger picture. Most of us have put in extra hours to get on.
I mean, I should say, you and I worked together years and years ago in an environment, we were reporters, so that's not proper work, I guess.
You never want to go home.
We never wanted to go home. We never said we did 2 hours extra last night. We were there round the clock.
Yeah. Well, that's like when I worked in politics, or indeed the work I do now. However, the distinction I'd make, and I sort of agree with Guto on this, for people like us who are either paid really well, or you're making your way in a career where you want to do really well for yourself, the rewards are really big. When you work in journalism, it's really fun to go to the pub after work and network, or if you do extra, you might get a promotion, right? If you're in a job like that, or if you worked in politics, like the people who work for Keir Starmer would literally have been working round the clock, getting him briefed up, ready in times, way beyond what, their hourly rate. If you're in these very interesting jobs where you've got loads of career progression, you can go on to do fabulous things in your life, of course. If you're getting paid minimum wage and you're literally in quite bad paying conditions, there's a lot of companies doing sort of firing and rehiring, you're made to work really difficult conditions. Absolutely, if you are working extra, you should get that.
Well, okay, that's a good point, because doesn't describe what we were doing back in the day, but it's whether a job is something where you're paid a wage and they tell you what to do and you do it. And if you don't like it, you leave.
Exactly.
No, but that's the opposite of what you're describing. You're describing a job where someone pays you and when you don't like it, you stay.
No, but that's because those jobs where you're literally paid by that, you're paid to do a job, and if you don't like it, you leave. That's those people. If you're doing extra, you should get paid extra. For people like us, I would say we're in an incredibly privileged position. For us, we're not down a coal mine right now. This is pleasure. Our jobs are sort of pleasure, and we do extra because it helps our sort of.
No, but there are a lot of jobs
like that
are quite comfortable in that sense. You're not a coal miner if you work in a consultancy. And it is quite shocking these days, the number of young people who come 5 o'clock or whatever say, I need to go home, I've done my hours. And if there is a presentation the following day, and that presentation will determine whether there's a new client, which means there's more money, which means people can get bonuses, or more people can get hired, then I think it's all shoulders to the wheel. And when you have somebody who says, well, I'm not doing that, and if you do have, and this is where employers have got to be responsible as well. If everybody has put in an extra shift, I think on a Friday, and I used to do with my team, said, you've all worked really hard this week. It's only 2:30, but do you know what? You worked hard on Tuesday, Wednesday, go home. or go to the pub, whatever. It's got to be tit for tat.
Absolutely, you have to have rewards. And I think about all the people, and we've just, when you think about doctors and nurses, particularly around the time of the pandemic, and we know that, I think for a lot of people in the public sector at the moment, I know a lot of my friends who are teachers are going way over and above. They bring in cereal boxes themselves to feed kids that they know aren't getting a breakfast, right? So they come in early to do that. They pay their own money to bring in breakfast. That is going over and above because they care about the jobs. And I think for people like that, they should get a treat or they should get some kind of,
I don't know. There's an
overtime.
example of a vacation where you do it because you care.
Yeah, so teachers who actually put on a school play or do sport on a Saturday, that is part of the joy and the allure and the satisfaction of being a teacher. And the counter to that is they get a lot more holiday than most people in other jobs.
I'm keen to see which side of the fence Brian's on. Brian, classic example, should the head teacher pay extra hours to the teacher who stays late to do the school play?
Jeremy, of course he should, but the reason being is because they've worked their normal hours and they're quite willing to stay on and keep the education or, the play going on. We did that when I worked at General Motors in Southampton. To keep the plan ticking over and to get the job out, we used the company, which was American, used to pay overtime. And then when they wanted to restructure everything, the union to a 37-hour week, they then turned around and said, all right, we'll spread it over 4.5 days or 4 days, so that if you worked on a Friday, we were on overtime. So a lot of people did that.
Yeah, so they were counting your hours, correct? They weren't asking you to work for free.
Yeah, no, you weren't working, but they wanted to get the job out. They wanted to get the job out, and they wanted to keep production ticking over.
I see. Yeah. But I mean, in the end,
the weekend.
Yeah, but what happens when you get an extra order in? The basis you're describing, they have to get more staff.
Well, they got more staff. You brought temporary staff in, but they never had the dedication like the people that work there full time.
OK, Brian, thank you. Leslie in Flintshire, you're a retired nurse, I gather.
I am, yes.
What's your thoughts on this? Did you find the NHS took advantage of you?
Oh, without a doubt. And it's not just one NHS, it's the whole of the NHS. In fact, if it wasn't for nurses staying back because of the workload, unpaid, the NHS would fall apart. Yeah,
I do wonder, because in the end, if you're a nurse and someone's crying out they need water and you're clocking off, you're going to turn back, aren't you? Without a shadow of a doubt. And you probably did that day after day, Leslie, did you?
Weekly, very much. I could probably do a whole week of overtime, unpaid.
What? So a week? Wait a minute. A week every? You mean you're working twice as many hours as you should now?
Yeah. Over the month. Yeah.
Over the month.
You work in an extra week in a month sometimes.
So you do 5 weeks a month. Yeah. And it's like the Beatles song, isn't it?
This is such an important point, and this is one of the reasons why so many doctors and nurses are leaving the NHS and why we have got these staffing issues. If you get to a point where you are burning people out so much, and people do it because they're, nurses are like amazing, they care so deeply about what they do. It's not fair on them, but it's not good for the organisation because people are just burning out and leaving.
So thank you, Leslie. Laura's got in touch on Twitter to say you should get paid for the hours you do, even if that's more than your contracted hours. Also on Twitter, Elizabeth says employers should be forced to pay employees double. Let's have a look at this one. Employers should be forced to pay employees double for overtime if they work it. So that idea that you get a job, they say you're going to be paid $25,000 a year and you're going to enjoy it, and you just basically never asked to go home. I think that's gone.
Well, that's a sort of lousy job. I mean,
it might be a great job.
Well,
in the midst of all this is a complicated, because what happens is staff nurses should clearly be paid more. The money might be there to pay them more, but a lot of the money that could pay staff nurses more goes on agency nurses who are paid by the hour and probably paid a higher rate, which is why a lot of people, as I understand it, are leaving staff positions in order to join agencies that then charge the NHS extra to pay people in a very transactional way. That is bad for all concerned.
I think people could nurses properly.
Yeah, and if you paid nurses and teachers properly, then they shouldn't be counting their hours.
I think we've got one more call. Alan in Essex is there. Hello, Alan.
Hello, good morning.
Do you employ anyone, sir?
Oh there, yes. It's about. I did chuckle when you said about or somebody mentioned about 7 hours a week extra unpaid overtime.
Yeah.
But I can say for the last 40 odd years, because this is real life and this is replicated right across the country, by the way, unless people didn't know. But people in the professional jobs are actually paid certain hours for the job.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were going to say you're like self-employed or something, Alan. So you've got no choice.
I'm not self-employed. No. I didn't say self-employed. I didn't mention the word self-employed.
No, I wondered where you were going with this. Are you saying you work for an employer or you are an employer?
Employer. For an employer.
Yep.
For an employer, as an actual professional man. So my job is consultant engineer and assessor. So I work all week naturally.
Yeah.
And my hours, because it's the job they pay you for. So somebody somewhere thought you could do your job in 37 hours a week. But there's nobody in the last 40 odd years can do this job in 37 hours a week. So I actually enjoy my job. So don't get me wrong, I enjoy my job. And that's the reason why I do it. And I work on average 60, 70 hours a week.
Oh, man. Now, that's exactly the example. Assessor, consultant. I'm guessing a lot of that is travel time, Alan, as well. Because
you travel time. I travel time as well, yes.
You've got to see. There's the example. I'm wondering whether actually Alan should get in. Have you thought of joining the TUC, Alan?
I was going to say being a unionist.
No. Because everybody is about 20 of us across the country do it.
Yeah.
So we do our job right. That is the job basically. Almost all of us love it. But the actual thing is though, travelling is a problem though. But the actual thing is though, a person could never do the job in 37 hours a week.
Understood.
But we do it anyway because we love it.
Because you love it. Thank you, Alan, very much. Really nice to talk to you. Terence in Cheshire, hi.
Hi, Jeremy. Right, I just wish to say to your panel and everybody, no employer should be forced to pay overtime. It's whether they want to pay it. Then you've got to have a workforce that is happy in the job and is content. In the UK today, there's so much mental illness and sickness in the workplace because people are forced into the realities that they're forced into with money issues, worry over money, and et cetera. So the problem you've got is, in reality, fact and truth, you can't force anybody to do what they don't want to do or don't wish to do. That's external power.
You can fire them if they don't do it. I mean, you basically say, look, you've got to work as hard as you can, and if we don't like you, we'll sack you. That's the old-fashioned Charles Dickens way of doing it.
No, it's not.
No.
It's basically giving people an opportunity. If they don't want to be in the job, I agree we should have fair pay. There should be fair pay, and fair pay for a fair day's work.
Thank you, Terence, very much. Later, it's the papers and everything else. Find out which pop star is being sent to space.